Hello, YouTube. We are back for another episode in relation to Jeremy's Detective Comics number 33. And the reason why I pronunciated Jeremy's name differently, if you didn't know already, this past Sunday, September 29th, I was on Liberty Hill Comics channel, Meet the Conservators. I had a great time. Thank you guys for allowing me to participate in your live stream, and we had a lot of fun, discussed a lot of topics, and Dr. Paul thought there was a germy person who had germs who owned this comic. So again, it's Jeremy with an E. I want to emphasize at the middle of the name. But listen, everyone knows I'm from New York and we say things a little bit different here. So what are we going to do? We are on the page 2, or the page that is behind the centerfold, and we are going to work on this. We're going to conserve it. And go check out, like I said, my live stream, or not mine, Dr. Paul's live stream on his channel. And it was a nice conversation, and it was a real insightful conversation, and really we saw eye to eye on the majority of the items that we discussed. And one of the topics was the issue in relation to science and art. Liberty Hill takes more of the scientific approach, which I have no issue with. I think it's rather cool if that is your sort of thing. I am more of a person who is a individual that likes to do the experiments when I work on the books, and I like to alter it versus studying the literature. And believe me, I did study the literature. I've read copious amounts of literature in relation to conserving documents, deacidification, leaf casting, all of those things. But the way I am now in my older years, I like to work on it hands-on and keep the reading to a minimum if I don't have to, because in my profession, as people know if you watch my channel, I am an attorney and I do a lot of reading for my job, and this is just an outlet where I can have some fun. And getting to the topic of art versus science, I stand by my approach when it comes to leaf casting. And that was a point of debate when I was on the live stream, where I do think leaf casting is art, because just because you can put pulp down on paper doesn't mean it's going to look right. Doesn't mean it's going to look nicely. It doesn't mean it's going to look professional. And that is a main aspect of what I like to do on the channel. I like to show you how to do it, and how to do it in a way that looks the best aesthetically when you're going to conserve a book. Because if I was going to put leaf casting down on this page and say, for instance, it was white, that wouldn't look too good, okay? This is the color that I developed for this book, for Jeremy's book, but I have plenty of other different colors that I save when I do leaf casting on other books. And believe me, the colors do vary substantially. In fact, I haven't taken this out in a while. These are all different types of leaf casting specimens that I have, and I keep them in folders. And for instance, this is a color that I used for the Hulk 181 that I conserved quite some time ago. And this was for the cover because it really turned out white after I cleaned it. Now, if I was going to use leaf casting and I was going to use a color, say, like this, going up the spine, filling in spots, that's not professional. That doesn't look good. I wouldn't want that. And if I gave someone a book and I said, hey, will you leaf cast this for me and make it look really nice in a conserved CGC label? And then it came back with that color all over the interior of the page and filling in pieces that were missing. I would say, really? Is that the job that you do? And I wouldn't pay the person. So to me, the aesthetics are very important. Also, what we discussed in relation to is the type of pulps or the types of origin papers or what you should use, whether it's like newsprint or different types of papers or fibers. And I'm all for using the like paper, newsprint for newsprint, because it just looks better. And I've been doing this 3-4 years, like we discussed on the live stream, and I have books that I didn't encapsulate, and the leaf casting at least is holding up for 4 years that I did in the past, and there's no issue with it. If we're looking for long-term, 20, 30 years, 40 years down the line, you know what? When I get there, I'll deal with it. And guess what? It doesn't matter in reality. And the reason why it doesn't matter if the leaf casting lasts for 100 years, because most likely this paper, this newsprint of the original book is not going to last that long, unless in the future years you maybe deacidify it again 20 years, 30 years from now. And that is one of the joys and benefits of conservation. You can prolong a book, the pages, by doing these deacidification baths, by leaf casting. And 20, 30 years from now, if the leaf casting and the book needs to be worked on, you can do it again. There's future conservators that can work on the book. Hopefully they care about these books in the future and they can work on it. And that's why leaf casting, I can remove the leaf casting and I can do it again if I'm still around 30 years. I can deacidify the page again if I'm still around in 30 years. And that's the big difference between conservation and restoration. Because with the restoration, you can't remove it theoretically if it's extensive, okay? I know you can remove some color touch here and there and different forms of restoration, but if it's really substantial, it's difficult at times because you can damage the book. Okay, so that is my 2 cents on that. And again, thank you, Liberty Hill, Dr. Paul, Larry, and even Phil from Phantom Restoration was on it. I had a really good time. And if I didn't see eye to eye or if we had difference of opinions, I don't back down from my opinion. And opinions are good because everyone could have a different opinion on how to do things. But it doesn't mean you can't be friends. It doesn't mean that you can't get along. It doesn't mean that you can debate. That is what civilized societies do. And there was plenty of examples on the live stream on Sunday, but not bad. But it was heated discussions and different views for a small amount of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. So what are we going to do with this wrap? I am going to tell you what I'm going to do with this wrap, and I'm going to do it probably for 2, 3, 4 other wraps in a row because, as you can see, they're in pretty good shape. There is absolutely going to be 0 leaf casting on this wrap because it doesn't need to be done. And that's another important thing, and that's why I would like to go back on the conservation live stream on Liberty Hill Comics channel, Dr. Paul's channel, because there's so many different topics that people who do this can discuss. And one of the things that I would have liked to discuss, or maybe in the future, is just because you can conserve doesn't mean you have to. And what does that mean? What it means is I can leaf cast a few imperfections in this wrap. But just because I can do it doesn't mean I have to do it, okay? And if you have little tiny pieces that are missing or little imperfections, there's other ways you can do it instead of leaf casting. And when I do leaf casting, the main goal of me doing leaf casting is to have the book functionable. The big examples are spine that is split, big chunks that are missing from the page itself that it would damage the book more by turning the page and reading it. Things like that, major defects. If little chunks are missing, I'm not going to leaf cast it. You have to have a balancing act, and that goes with just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should. So what we're going to do for this wrap is I am going to deacidify the wrap, and I am going to use calcium carbonate. We don't need to show how I am going to do it. We did it with the centerfold, so if you want to see how I did it, revert back to a few episodes and go take a look how I did it with the centerfold. I'm going to deacidify this wrap, and I am going to let it settle. As Dr. Paul in his channel showed how to do it. We're going to let it settle to the bottom, and we're going to use the calcium carbonate, which I think is a less strong deacidification method than using calcium hydroxide, because I've used them both, and the calcium carbonate I think is a little less aggressive, and that's why I am using it. Okay, so we're going to deacidify, but then what I want to do, there are small little tears on the printing cuts. These are little nips that come out from the machines, and they're spreading up. They're still on the border of the panels. One here, there's a little actual rip here. There's a few little rips around. So what I'm going to do after the deacidification, and this is what I am going to show you, is that I am going to do a I'm going to use Tengujo. Not Tengojo! Tengujo. That is how you pronounce it, everyone. It's not Tengojo, but Tengujo. So right now, from this point forward, when I say Tengojo, that is for theatrics. That is for people to comment, to chuckle, to laugh, because it is not only a channel, Jerry the Jitterbug, that focuses on comics and comic conservation, it's also a channel to laugh, to discuss topics, to have fun. So when you watch my channel, it is Tengujo, not the way I say it, Tengojo. So just so everyone knows, to be clear. So we're going to use Tengojo, and we are going to reinforce these little rips, because if we don't reinforce them, they most likely will spread and they will migrate up to the graphics, and we do not want that to happen. Okay, so we'll nip it on the bud, and we will prevent it by reinforcing it with the Tengujo. Okay, then what I want to do, and in the past, and I probably lost about 30% of the viewers because this is just me rambling, but sometimes you have to talk. So I'm also going to reinforce the spine with the Tengujo paper, and I am going to reinforce, and I'm not going to rip the Tengujo. Okay, I am going to do precision cuts, and I never did this before, or at least on camera, so this is going to be the next upload, because I want a thin strip of Tengujo going up right here down the spine, right down the middle, from the bottom to a little bit above the staple holes. And we want to do the same. And I just want, like I said, a precision cut. So the centerfold spine is going to cover the Tengujo support that we're going to do, okay? And it's going to be very important because we're not going to add thickness, because that stuff is thin as anything, and it is going to support the wrap, okay? And that's essentially it. We also have to pay particular attention because see the way the bottom was cut from the factory? We have to replicate that. So if I put one straight edge, say on the front page down with the line here, look how it dips down, okay? We're gonna have to do a template for this in order to cut the centerfold just like this, because this is how we wanna cut the centerfold at an angle like this. It's very important because we want the centerfold to line up with each one of the wraps. So thank you. I appreciate you stopping by. If you haven't voted for Jerry the Jitterbug Comic Book Collector for the Comic Book Community Awards, here is the link in the description. Please go and vote for my channel. It would greatly be appreciated. For those who voted for my channel, thank you for doing it. And stay tuned.